All right, guys, it looks like it's 9:30, so I'll call the meeting to order. Appreciate everyone taking the time to get online or be there in person. First order of the day is the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? If there are no objections, we'll accept the agenda as presented. You should have received the minutes several days ago. Are there any changes, corrections to the minutes from the last meeting?
Move for approval.
If there are no objections, we'll accept as presented. Committee reports, Finance Committee.
Good morning, Wayne. Royce
Morning.
gave a very great abbreviated this morning. Royce, would you like to do that, or Darwin, would you? I mean, we're not doing that poorly, and I just.
I'll got the finance report, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Norman.
First of all, I'd like to make sure you understand kind of where we are now financially as compared to last year. So we're going to be talking about numbers from July this past year through January of this year. If we take a look at the revenue that we generated in every single category, whether it's admissions, parking, lease income, everything is down. Our revenue for that period of time declined from $6 million down to nearly $4 million. So that's a dramatic decline because of the coronavirus in the revenue. What's really interesting, because everyone has worked so hard in controlling the expenses, instead of having a $500,000 or $600,000 or $800,000 loss in that period, we've had right at a $300,000 loss. And at the previous year, we had $190,000 or nearly $200,000 loss. So if you take a look at how substantial the revenue declined and how low our loss is, somebody's really doing a great job in controlling the expenses. So we're not in bad shape, and we have still $5.3 million in cash or cash equivalents. So we're doing pretty doggone good financially, and if our business improves a little bit as the weather improves and the coronavirus declines, I think we're going to probably come out of this in better financial shape than we've ever been. And if there's no questions about the finances, I would like to make just one minor comment about IT and operations. And so any questions on finance? If not, just one thing about IT. Bottom line is we're continuing to improve our IT platform. Operationally, we've got a lot of projects underway, which has certainly been being taken care of by Mike Hastings. But anyway, flight deck improvement, continues as scheduled. That's a big project. It's going to take a long time, and there's a lot of other things going on operationally that will be important to the Paper Smart organization in the future. And Mr. Chairman, that completes my report unless there's other questions.
Thank you, Darwin. Any questions for finance or the facilities? Hearing none. Susan, do you have a report from Education Museum Committee?
I do. We did not meet this time, but I've been in touch with Lynn Bennett, who is, of course, our former board member here. And she is now the vice chairman of House Education Committee. And there are some recommendations and suggestions she has for us going forward so that we can ratchet up our presence in education and delivery of services. As of course everyone knows, COVID has changed the delivery of services probably forever of education. And the technology and the blended learning, which by the way, we have a blended learning program. I'm not so sure that everybody on the board has ever been made to understand what blended learning is. But blended learning is, and we've been doing this, so we are on target with these newer things that are coming out everywhere. It's an approach to education that combines online educational materials and opportunities for interaction online with traditional place-based classroom methods. It requires the physical presence of both teacher and student with some elements of student control over time, place, path, or pace. Well, we've been doing that. And as a matter of fact, the name of our grant from the EIA is Literacy and Distance Learning. To start to broaden on our ability to deliver services through that means, we would be, just lost my place. So we would be trying to take a look at all of our learning spaces on the ship. The flight deck has been used for astronomy. We have the classroom that can accommodate 3 teachers. We have just the flight academy, and all of these places could be utilized to help support our mission and help us align with what's needed for the state, especially as far as innovation, because there's nothing like us. So I've asked Keith to please look at all of our spaces that we have that have a potential for blended learning, delivery of services. And in an ideal world, what would be required as far as instructional abilities, capabilities to utilize all of those spaces, any and all of them, so that we're in a position to talk going forward when we talk with the state, and especially House Education, to be able to identify these places and how we would use them. So that's one of the things. The other thing is on our website, I'd like to ask and request that the landing page for the education be changed. When you hit the education tab, a COVID-19 notice comes up that says structured programs are suspended. Well, according to the definition of blended learning, which is our grant from EIA at this time, that's really not the case. We are able to provide services, and we are able to provide structured programs. So it says that on the landing page, but then it goes on to say, consider booking a guided, self-guided tour, a guided / self-guided tour for your group. And those two things, according to people that have looked at this, seem contradictory and are confusing. So if we can take a look at those types of things, that will help us move forward. I believe Representative Chandra Dillard asked about our best practices and asked about our educational peers, the other museums, and taking a look at some websites on the Midway, the Intrepid, the USS North Carolina. All of these places, when you go to their landing pages, none of them indicate that their educational services are suspended. And I think if we took a look at their language, we would get some good ideas there. Same thing happens if you go to the camping page, but you're invited to join an exclusive list for program relaunch. But then it goes on to suggest interested in booking a day group tour. Well, again, there was a question about why does that read that way? It also on our events landing page says no upcoming events. Well, that's not really a very good thing to say, because there are going to be upcoming events and there are going to be things to look forward to. So those are things that, again, when people are landing on our page, that we're really doing more than the website indicates we are doing. On March the 25th, coming up, March 25th is National Medal of Honor Day, and Will and the town are going to make a proclamation to honor the 5 South Carolina recipients on that day. We'd like to plan a spaced, admission-free, not a symposium, but along the lines of what we used to do, a symposium outside the Medal of Honor Theater with the Medal of Honor Museum entrance to honor those 5. There are sponsors already that are going to make big placards of the portrait or pictures of each of those recipients with their citation. And Will is going to, on behalf of the town, do a proclamation, and that will unfold as time goes on. Also, something to look forward to is we'd like to look into beta testing a Saturday program in March. It would be for the VIP, student VIP program, very important pupils. And to take a look at Saturdays on the ship, students would come from 1 to 3, and this is just a proposal. I don't know if this is a board action or just discussion. Students would come from 1 to 3 each Saturday in March. They would meet at the picnic area under the trees. The cost would be $5 per pupil. The students must be able to walk with groups, so ages 14, and could do another age of older kids if it was interested. 2 hours of a historic tour of the Yorktown and Laffey. The idea of this is to support parents on Saturdays and let them drop their children off and come over here and then pick them up in 2 hours. They'd be guided by certified VIP vendors who have taught in our school programs. Those vendors would be paid $15 an hour for a total of $30 per teacher or instructor. And those groups would take a various number of kids from 15 to 20 students. There's a possibility of being several groups, up to 3 or 4, as there are that many vendors committed if it was approved. And of course, all pupils would distance and wear masks and everything and follow those rules and hand sanitizing as with the vendors. At that rate, an example, if this was marketed, 1 to 15 to 20 students at $5 each equals $75, $30 for the vendor, so a profit of $45 for the group. And that's at a minimal charge of $5, because this is intended to be more of a service than an actual program. So those are some ideas to kind of help us in some simple ways to assist the public schools as they are trying to come back from the world of instructional COVID. And that's
Well,
it.
sounds like a lot of good ideas. I hope that you'll be pushing that in the education committee on this. What you're talking about in March, it seems to me that we need a proposal, an actual proposal for that.
For the Saturdays or Medal of Honor?
Yeah, for the Saturdays.
Okay, well, we didn't have a committee meeting, but I think you're on the committee, so I don't know if it needs a second, since it would need a second. So I would make a motion to the board that we explore the VIP student Saturdays beginning in March as a beta testing project, be organized by our education department on board the ship. And as it unfolds, it would be approved and with oversight of the rules of the ship.
Second.
Well, can we not like push that to April and get an actual proposal from the committee in March before you
Yes.
launch it? I mean, that's all I'm asking. I just think we need a little bit more than, a written proposal would be nice, and so everybody can think about it.
Okay, well, I can have that written proposal in the next day or so and send it around. And then maybe as that would provide some guidance as we plan it, so it would be acceptable. First go round.
And we can push it to April so we can talk about it in March.
So I'm not sure of what the school calendar is. March seemed to be sort of a good time to do it. I don't know what their spring break schedule is. I think that they are trying to, there was a reason to look at March. I can check into that more and find out, should it be April, or is there a reason to go ahead and try to do it in March because of the general school calendar?
Okay.
Okay, good.
Well, and if you would do that, there may be a possibility that we'll have to have a special board meeting at some point in the next few weeks anyway. So Mike could kill two birds with one stone, so to speak, if that's all right. All right. So given that, if you'll just move on that, we'll just move along from the motion. But thanks for that report. Mike, are you going to give the director's report?
I am, yes, sir. Yep. Good for those that are just tuning in by phone, if you're not recognizing my voice. So this is Mike. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. And what I'd like to do is really just go ahead and start and just the discussion about the two handouts that hopefully everybody received in their email. The proposed ticket price increase discussion, which is really just for your consideration today, and we're not looking for your decision, but then the event pricing recommendation proposal. I know that there's a lot of information in just a couple of pages there, and there's a lot of calculus that went into that by the staff. I think it's important that I set the table a little bit, and just to make sure that we're all on the same sheet of music. So a few months back, Larry asked us to take a look at how we can obviously save money, but also how can we maybe gain back some momentum in the current situation regarding 50% reduction in budget. We're understaffed. Of course, everybody's tracking that we're down almost 19 folks, and of course, pending large financial decisions or payouts that are due. So how do we not just hold what we have, but how do we maybe even gain momentum? How do we seize the momentum? And I think that when you take a half step back and you look at it, this is a really good time. February in particular, January, February, March. This is a great time for these initiatives. This is a slower time of the year. There isn't a lot of guests. There aren't a lot of events. To enact these wouldn't really raise that much of an issue or an eyebrow to folks. The folks that are traveling are spending, and I think that we can seize the opportunity right now. To start off with, and again, I'm not going to go line by line and read through the ticket pricing proposal. I think that at your leisure you can read through that, but the bottom line with basically, if you look at the precedent that's been set from 2014, 16, and 18, we did bump ticket prices $2 every year. Bumping it by $3 in 2021, that's pretty much just right on pace. It doesn't put us ahead anywhere else when you do a market comparison with our like organizations, Fort Sumter, the Aquarium, and Middleton Place. We're just gonna it's a neutral. We're not going to outpace them. We're just keeping on line with those folks just by bumping up $3 per ticket. That will net over $500,000 in revenue. I think that's overall a fairly simple win. The second page, and again, I know that requires maybe a little bit more refinement. We were actually having a discussion before this meeting, staff internally. There might be ways to adjust it. And I know that Pat responded that, you know, lowering the age to 4 to 12, which currently 6 to 12, where we charge children, that may cause an issue, or that may make folks wince a little bit. Understood, but it's not unprecedented when you take a look at not just what's in South Carolina, but also other museums or naval maritime museums across the country. So we're not doing something that's completely out of line. This, again, I think it could be tweaked, but if we did reduce the age from 4 to 12, that's another $90,000 potentially in revenue, all based off of projections. So close to $600,000 just with those two ticket increases or structure adjustments in the ticketing. Again, I'm not fully prepared. We can deep dive into this one if you'd like to, and I've got Chris here who could help me out. But if you'd like to maybe readdress this in March's board meeting for a decision, that's fine as well. Or we can field questions through email, or we can entertain any question you might have right now regarding the ticket price increase.
I would, excuse me, I would suggest that we, I mean, obviously ask any questions we have today and then actually consider this, put this on the agenda for the March meeting so everybody can think about it a little bit. Susan, were you about to say something?
I was, when I got this, I'm like Pat, the 4-year-old thing, I, you know, as we know, in all public education, the heavy funding right now is going towards early childhood. And 4-year-olds can't read, and 4-year-olds are not going to stay on the ship very long if at $16 a person. And I went to a lot of these other websites for, in particular, I looked at the Midway and the Intrepid, and I also looked at the Battleship North Carolina and compared these. And one of the things, the Intrepid is at $33, so that would be closer to where we're headed. But they also, these places, a lot of them participate in a reciprocal passport program where they have relationships with other museums so that these tickets and their memberships are good other places as well at that high ticket price. There's a place called, there's an Association of Science and Technology Centers that is a museum reciprocal group. I think you might want to take a look at that. In South Carolina, we only have one other museum, but in North Carolina, Florida, and Georgia, there are many reciprocal museums that are in the same interest categories and that would broaden our reach if we go up on the ticket. When I looked at the Battleship North Carolina, the other thing about going up on the ticket like that is all of them have options for family, individual, group tickets. And I think we would need to really take a look at that option, because people that do want to come a lot or do have a bunch of kids, it's prohibitive. And I don't, I mean, it says, you know, I think that y'all didn't have any real protocols or real statistical information to indicate 4 or 5-year-old people that are in attendance at all. So not having any real information there on how many of those people are coming, I think that I found it very informative to look at these other places and look at their group tickets and their pricing and their benefits of those tickets. So I think it really to do this, I think we need to really have some alternatives, because if we're going to be in line with these expensive places, we really need to deliver what they're delivering or something close.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks, Susan. Any other thoughts, questions? Hearing-
Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
if I may, I understand the reasoning behind this. I think given the climate lately and all that, the minute we pass that, the headline's going to be Patriots Point raises prices on children. And right now, I think that would be somewhat of a self-inflicted wound that we don't need. But I'm not nixing it right now. Maybe, good things happen between now and March, and we can talk about it in March. But my first impression of this was, I think the timing would be a little tone deaf so far as our public image right now.
I tend to agree with you, Mayor. And you're talking about the children specifically, the age, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. All right. Mike, do you have anything about the rentals, or we just?
Absolutely. I think that that's worthy of a discussion. We can go from the macro to the micro as much as you like.
Just top line for right now, so, yeah. Okay.
There's a lot of data on that information sheet, that proposal. But the big takeaway when you look at the first those two pages, there is a lot of backside support required to do an event on the ship, or on the ships on the ground. The net revenue, $337,000, may stand out, but the opportunity cost for lost work, which we can't even calculate during the day to set up for an event, that the same guys who are painting or grinding, or the maintainers, those folks have to stop work to support a setup for an event in the evening. I can't even calculate that. You see the figure there that there's 22 or 2,100 hours dedicated just after hours by those same people. That may be for an event for 25 folks for 2 hours. Regardless, I have an electrician here, I have custodians here for a very small event that's really not netting us much. What our proposal is to maximize, reduce the number of spaces, but maximize our potential, and really less pain on us, but the profit margin will increase. So if you got $130,000 in profits through event rentals, yes, we're currently pulling that, but through what pain just to get there? I think overall, when you go from 21 event spaces on the ship down to 13, you increase the rental prices by just 15%, which is fair, absolutely fair across the board, comparatively. Increasing some of the other costs, like golf cart rentals. I could deep dive into this, but for instance, to pay time and a half to have someone drive a golf cart, we figured the math out. It was basically, we're earning $50 just to rent a golf cart for 4 hours. And I know I'm getting in the weeds there. That's why, for instance, we increased the prices from golf carts from 180 to 250. It's got to be worth the effort put into it, especially when you're driving a golf cart for almost 1,000 hours for events every single year, and you have to maintain those vehicles. Not to derail this, but I think that overall, this is again a reduce the burden on the staff, increase profit margins, and make it more of an exclusive rental space, a place to have an event, instead of trying to be everything to everyone and renting out multitude of spaces, which aren't, and Bobby could back me up, our event coordinator, we're not renting it very often. We're not renting some of these smaller venues. We have it on our palette, but people they're not jumping on it. Onesies and twosies here and there throughout the course of the year. And you could say, well, then what's the big deal? But again, I'm still tying people to support that and power it and clean it and then work it, set up for it, and then tear down from it. I think that if we focus on the main, and that's the purpose of this, is to focus on those main spaces, we can make more off of that, or just as much, if that makes any sense.
Okay. Any questions of Mike about event rentals or either proposal?
Can we see what the 21 spaces are and what the 13 are?
Absolutely. Here's the current 21 spaces, and there's the, those were emailed out
Oh, okay.
a couple days ago. The event, the pricing proposal from, now we didn't send the current 21 spaces, we did send the proposed 13 spaces. And it's a 15%, basically a 15% increase, and a minimum of 4-hour rental.
And I would imagine, Mike, if someone just really, really, really wanted one of these 7 or 8 spaces that are would not be offered, we could work out something to let them have it, right?
I think that could be coordinated
Yeah.
for sure. And the proposal also mentions as well, veterans groups and there's special interest groups that we have that we make concessions
Yeah.
on. Like the association, Yorktown Association, and things of that nature.
One-
That's absolutely.
I tell you what's most important to me, as I look at this, as Susan noted in her committee report, we're a very unique place. There are no venues like this anywhere else in the area. So I think, and from my perspective, these things are worthwhile. The thing that I think is the most important when it comes to rentals, though, as I think we've just seen, is we desperately need to urgently revise the event contract. We obviously got some things that need to be strengthened in there and rethought. That my understanding is that contract is quite old, has not been revised in many years, maybe decades. I don't know. So I've asked Bill to jump on that, and that needs to be right in there with looking at pricing.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
And it's underway.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, this is Will,
Yeah,
if I
Mayor.
may.
Sure.
Just to bring up two things. One is like we saw, with the previous issue, the whether it's any kind of cause majeure or a storm or a COVID or something like that. But the other would be not letting people use the name of the ship or Patriots Point. We're a location. We're not necessarily involved in, the event. And I think that hurt us on the New Year's Eve gala.
You're absolutely right, Mayor. I agree completely.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts on events or admissions? If not, we'll take that up in the next meeting. Mike, were you going to say something else?
No, I think if we go into executive session, I just wanted to make sure that there's clear understanding regarding the catering contract expiring on March 14th. And the cognitive decision, we're not going to submit an RFP, but we do have a course of action that can make the difference up and actually gain traction on that. We have ways to, when we do restart the camping program, to fill that void, actually probably maybe even a little bit better and less intrusive on us, but also the snack bar area. We've done quite a bit of research on that. And I think that we have a good solution for it.
Would you be prepared to present that at our March meeting?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Great. Anything else on Mike's in this area? If not, we'll move on to public comments. Are there any public comments from anyone? Hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion to move into executive session for the purpose of discussing contractual, legal, and personnel matters pertaining to Patriots Point Development Authority.
So moved.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. We'll move into executive session. I would like for Bill Craver, Mike, and Chris Hoff to remain with us initially. Ready? Great. Okay, we're back in open session. There were no decisions made or votes taken in executive session. Mr. Mayor, do you have a motion?
Yes. I move to direct the finance committee of this board, along with our attorney, to proceed as directed on a legal matter as discussed in executive session.
Any
Second.
discussion? The second is moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion as presented, say aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. It's unanimous. Zeb, would you like to, you have a motion?
Yes, I do. Mr. Chairman, I move that we designate our Operations Director, Mike Hastings, to be the acting Executive Director of Patriots Point until such time as we hire a permanent director.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. It's unanimous. If there is no further business to come before the board, and I think this is one of the longer meetings we've had in a while. Thanks so much for your patience today. I appreciate that. And looking forward to the search committee's work. We'll stand adjourned. Everyone have a great weekend.
Thanks for the time, Wayne.
Thank you.
Have you.